Hey everyone, Jason Sherman here, strap on your boots. In today's episode, I have with me Rob Schulz, who is a wealth manager and financial planner. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. It's great to be here.
Awesome. And I notice you know a lot about transitioning people between selling their business and going into the real world without that business. And you mentioned to me earlier that it seems like people kind of get addicted to their business. And tell me a little bit about the mindset that people have when selling a business and why they can't just let go of it once they sell it. What's the holdup?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I would say there can be a number of things. One is I think it takes a different set of skills to sell a business or transition a business than it does to run a business. It takes a different set of advisors a lot of the time, and a lot of times you don't know where to start, and other times you don't start soon enough. It's just a different animal, so they end up kind of a lot of times procrastinating it maybe a little bit too long, or in many cases they'll make the wrong decision about what to do because they're using their skill set that they have for running their business for trying to sell it. And like I said, it's just two different things completely. Yeah.
And as part of the reason why somebody, like, for example, I sold the business in 2012, I think it was. And when I sold the business, I was happy to, wipe my hands clean of it and move on to the next thing and not worry too much about, what's going to happen to that business and did I make the right choice? I didn't have any regrets, no hesitations, nothing at all. So what is it that's causing somebody to have those second thoughts or regrets? Is it because they don't have a life outside the business and they made the business their life? Is that really what it is?
Yeah, it can be. And, Jason, that congratulations, because, you are in the minority. Most folks who sell their business do have some regrets, wish they'd done something a little bit differently, feel like they didn't really plan out what they were going to do after they sold the business. All of those things happen. So, I have to turn it back around. What made this such a great transaction that you were able to do that?
What you just said awesome. was the complete opposite for me. So ironically, I wasn't trying to sell my business.
Okay.
Right? It was a brick and mortar business that I had turned into a franchise. The franchise didn't work out, but the main business did. I didn't really want to be in that business much longer, but it was profitable. I had a plan for what I wanted to do, which was basically build a studio, start making movies, make my technology business kind of take off to the next level. But this brick and mortar kind of had a chain around my leg. So I was stuck, In comes some guy who wanted to buy the business. Randomly, he liked what I was doing and he bought the brand, he bought the website, he bought the store. And he gave me an offer I couldn't refuse.
There you go.
Okay. So I took the offer and I was excited. I was like, okay, perfect. I don't have to, because it's funny, Rob, I was actually thinking of closing down the business.
Yeah.
So it was great timing. And what do you think, is that something that happens? People are ready to close a business down and then maybe you help them find a way to sell it or they sell it? What's that whole situation like?
I would say sometimes that happens, that somebody just can't figure out what to do with it. They're kind of done. In most cases, if you get to that stage, it can get real dangerous if you don't find somebody pretty soon. Because, in your case, for instance, just like so many others, your interests have changed, your focus has changed, and you've got this chain and ball around your ankle, and it just loses value and loses value and loses value the longer that you kind of ignore it and go off with the other things that you're doing. One thing when you were telling your story that I just thought was really interesting, and I see this a lot. I'll see business owners that they have a plan, like you had a plan, and part of being successful in a business is being able to have a plan and stick with it, right?
Absolutely.
I would say another part of being successful as a business owner is being able to recognize when things change, okay, and being able to shift and go with that, because there are external forces as well as internal forces that are just going to change over time. And the business owners that I've seen that have transitioned really, really successfully can recognize those changes, whether they're, there's just huge valuations all of a sudden that are happening. The whole plan was to transition to some junior executives, but I mean, all of a sudden private equity's coming in and just gobbling up people in your industry at ridiculous levels. Well, maybe you need to change your plan at that standpoint. A lot of people won't. Okay.
Right. They're stubborn and they're used to their business and they think it's worth more, and it's too sentimental, too much. It means too much to them. Yeah. I noticed that not only in private sector, but also the public sector. When you have people like, for example, Snapchat's a good example. Snapchat was famously offered, I think, $3 billion by Google, and Evan Spiegel turned it down. And then he got a $4 billion offer from Facebook and he turned it down. And to me, it's mind-boggling to turn down any billion-dollar offer from any company because, again, he's still running that company for a decade or 2 decades. And it's like, when is enough and how much money is enough to walk away from a thriving business? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, so that's right. And that's a very extreme example, obviously, but that happens a lot. Sometimes the timing's not right. Like, for instance, in your case, the timing was perfect. Somebody came around and said, man, I'll pay you some money for this. And it was perfect. Other times somebody just might not be ready. They have plans. They're maybe younger. There might be some offers out there, but they're like, man, I've still got legs. I've still got ideas. I still think I can really make something huge of this. I'm not ready to sell out yet. I think that's okay. I mean, if you're having fun in your business and you think you can make it do really good things and you've got youthful exuberance and all that stuff still going, that's great. But at the same time, you should be planning towards that end, because it can take, even for a small business, it can take 10 years, to really make a transition plan work, especially, when you're selling to a third party, that's one thing. But let's say you're trying to do a transition within your family, or trying to build up an executive team that you're going to sell to, or do an ESOP or things like that. Those can take a lot more time. And what I find is that, people want to do that stuff really quick and they get frustrated. And because there's some things that just need to happen before you actually do it. It's
time consuming. So when we're talking about smaller businesses, let's say they're earning $1 million a year, or not even, maybe a couple $100,000 a year, just family businesses. Maybe they're getting acquired by larger companies, or maybe, like you said, they're passing it on to a family member. What are the top 3 things that a business owner should keep in mind to do the transition properly from being the business owner to either passing it off to a family member or selling off to a larger company? What are the top 3 things you would recommend?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is to know what your non-negotiables are. To go in and write them down. Just say, hey, these are the things that are really, really important to me. And so many, the way we make a mistake there is we say, hey, well, man, I just want a whole bunch of money for my business. Well, that's just like one of the factors. How are you going to get paid that money? Are you going to get it paid all up front? Well, if you go for the maximum amount of money, more than likely you're not. There's going to be some holdbacks and some things like that can occur. So figure out what your non-negotiables are, and what's important to you. You should look at your corporate values and make sure that that's in alignment with what your non-negotiables are for the business. And then probably the third thing would be, besides, I guess I'll say the first one was know what your non-negotiables are. Second, make sure that, what you're looking for in a transaction is in alignment with your corporate and personal values. I'd say the third thing to be cognizant of is to know what your plan is after you sell the business. Those would be the 3 biggest things in my mind.
Because, you're basically retiring in some way, and you need to figure out what you're going to fill your time with, because from what I've been reading, people who are retiring, especially during the pandemic, realizing, well, what are they going to do now? They're bored because they can travel, but not even really that much anymore. And what are you going to fill your time with? TV, shuffleboard, tennis? Like what are you going to actually be doing with your time? Because it sounds really great. People always say, oh, I can't wait to retire. But remember when we were kids and we couldn't wait to get a job and we couldn't wait to drive a car and we couldn't wait to pay bills, and now we're like, we want to go back to being kids. So maybe think about retirement more so as what do you want to fill your time with versus not fill your time, because retirement really means you're not working anymore.
It does. And, business owners are very goal based normally. They're trying to achieve things and they get excited about achieving things. They're achievement oriented. You can't just turn that off. I mean, you need to have something that you're looking forward to. It doesn't have to be a business, but it can be a business. It can be a charity. It can be something family related. It can be
volunteering or a nonprofit or something like that.
It can be any of that stuff, but you need to get involved in some things. And if you don't plan that out, what a lot of these guys will find out is that they are busy because, just stuff will fill your plate. I mean, but just make sure it's stuff that you feel like is worthwhile, that's important to you, that again, that value alignment. I have a term, there's enterprise value, which is how much your business is worth. I have a term called enterprise values, and that's an alignment with what you're doing within your business with, what your true values are. And I think that becomes very, very important as you approach a transition. And I think it's very important after a transition to recognize, what's truly important to you and make sure that you're spending your time, your effort, and your money towards those things. Otherwise, you will be spending your time on stuff, but it's going to be stuff that maybe is important to other people besides yourself.
Interesting. So a lot of this sounds similar to me to, really kind of outlining and pre-planning what you envision your future to be like, to make sure that everything that you envision, like your corporate values or your family values or your business values, making sure that everything is kind of written out so that, okay, I feel comfortable with this decision. I feel comfortable with this transition, and I feel comfortable with this plan moving forward where I'm not going to be twiddling my thumbs wondering what I'm doing. So it sounds a lot about planning ahead to make sure that you're making the right decision and you're not going to be left kind of regretting what you did. So is that is that the gist of it?
That would be, Jason. I mean, I'm a financial planner, so I believe in planning. I think, I get people all the time. They'll come up to me and say, should I do this or that? And I don't know what kind of decision to make here. My answer always is, well, we have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And if we have a plan, then we can come back to whatever your question was, and the plan will answer the question in most cases. So, I always say that, you're doing three types of planning. You're planning for the worst. As a business owner, you need to plan for the worst very first. That means, what happens if I die? What happens if I get disabled? What do I have in place to make sure that my family is okay, that my employees are okay, that my business can survive, that I can survive in case tragedy happens? So that's absolutely the first thing. And most business owners don't even get there, right? The second thing you have to plan for is you need to plan for the best. Plan for success. Have that lined out as to what do you define success as, and be able to back those numbers up and everything up. But at the same time that you're planning for success, you need to plan for that to change. So you're continually looking at that success plan, making adjustments as different things and opportunities happen, just like what happened with you. And then the third thing is you need to be able to plan for what's after your business. And you need to be doing that now too, and making sure that it's something that is in full alignment that you can be excited about, because business owners get really excited about their business. They spend a lot of time and effort in that. And, when that vacuum goes away, there needs to be something else there exciting for them to do as well.
Yeah, going cold turkey is definitely tough. I remember, again, it's funny you keep saying this, because when I sold my business and I literally was already starting this other thing, right? So I had already started it, which is why I wanted to close the business down. So for me, it was like a godsend. It was saying, someone told me, hey, let me buy your business. And then I was like, perfect. So I can now just start this thing full time, whereas I was doing it part time, So I guess most people don't have that luxury. So like you said, plan for the best, plan for the worst, and plan for the future. I like it. Adapt, tweak, iterate your plan as you move along so that it's always constantly changing to fit your needs. And you should have a happy life, right? Now, where can people find more about you, or maybe books you've written, or anything that you want to offer my audience?
Yeah, Jason, I'm easy to find. We have a website you can go to and check out stuff that we write and so forth. I have a podcast now that I just started that's called P&L Priorities and Lifestyle, and it's for business owners. We interview business owners about things like this. You can find me on Facebook. Schulz Wealth is the name of my firm. I have a book, and then I have a Facebook group that both of them are entitled Thoughts on Things Financial. That's a general financial planning book that I wrote. And in that Facebook group, we just kind of talk about financial planning issues, that kind of stuff. Pretty easy to get in touch with.
Awesome. Sounds like a wealth of, pun intended, information.
There you go.
I like it. Awesome, Rob. Well, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I think this was really enlightening for people wondering more about the financial world and how to cope with selling their business. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And we will see everybody in next week's episode.